Southwest Florida. Man, this is what it's all about. So it's always great to be back, and I'm joined by really an all-star cast here that we're going to talk about a lot of our efforts to restore Florida's Everglades and natural resources, successful efforts that are ongoing. Our Department of Environmental Protection Secretary Alexis Lambert, our Executive Director of Florida Fish and Wildlife, Roger Young, Board Chairman of South Florida Water Management District, South Florida's own Chauncey Goss. We got the Executive Director of South Florida Water Management District, Drew Bartlett. We have some of the other board members here too. I saw Charlotte, I saw Ben, and so I want to thank all the board members who came from the Water Management District. Anna Upton, CEO of Everglades Trust, and then James Evans, CEO of Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. Director of Keep Florida Fishing for the American Sports Fishing Association, Gary Jennings. And then, of course, we do have other dignitaries. So I want to thank everybody for being here. We launched our efforts to really create a new beginning for Florida's natural resources way back in January of 2019 in Southwest Florida. It was Arctic temperatures that day. I remember thinking, am I in Green Bay or am I in Southwest Florida? But we charted a very bold vision. It was something that needed to be done, not only in terms of restoring Florida's Everglades, which is the largest restoration project anywhere in the United States and maybe anywhere in the world, but also doing things to improve water quality, reduce discharges from Lake Okeechobee, and we've worked with the Army Corps so that they manage that better, but we also know that we had a role in creating some new infrastructure that would make it unnecessary for the Army Corps to do the discharges. So there was a lot of stuff that we set out to do. The first announcement back in January 2019, we said, all right, we're serious about this. We're going to commit $2.5 billion over 4 years to Everglades restoration and water quality projects, and that represented $1 billion more than had been done in the previous 4 years. And so a lot of people appreciated it. They thought it may be too ambitious. We ended up doing $3.3 billion during that period of time, which is more than Florida's ever had by a country mile. And that 4-year run of $3.3 billion, that was more than the previous 12 years combined for the state of Florida. We also then, the January of 2023, we said we wanted to do $3.5 billion over the next 4 years. And I'm proud to say we've almost achieved that goal just in 2 years. We've gotten over $3 billion for that. When you are supporting Everglades restoration, that does have a positive impact on not only our way of life, but also Florida's economy. Over the next 50 years, we think that hundreds of thousands of jobs will be linked to these restoration efforts. Over the past 5 years, we've reached, because of my leadership in part, but honestly, the legislature being supportive of the funding, and then the Water Management District, people really working hard. I mean, it's really been a team effort. We have completed or broken ground on more than 75 projects just in the past 5 years. That's a record for this state. 2021, we completed the old Tamiami Trail roadbed removal project 6 months ahead of schedule. That allows more water to flow south to Everglades National Park as God originally intended. We completed the C-44 reservoir and stormwater treatment area to provide clean fresh water to the Indian River Lagoon in the St. Lucie Estuary. We also completed the S-333 water control structure, which doubles the amount of water that can be moved south to Everglades National Park. So far, since 2019, through our efforts, we've reduced the amount of harmful nutrients in South Florida's waterways by 727,000 pounds per year of nitrogen and almost 500,000 pounds per year of phosphorus. Now, so these projects, as well as other investments, have brought the cumulative annual nutrient removal efforts to over 1.8 million pounds of nitrogen and 770,000 pounds of phosphorus each and every year. We've also made major progress on the crown jewel of Everglades restoration, the EAA Reservoir. We were able to break ground on our part of the project 1 full year ahead of schedule. The AA Reservoir Project, of course, is one way to reduce discharges from Lake Okeechobee, clean water, and send it south. The 10,000-acre reservoir with 240,000 acre-feet of storage delivers water to the 6,300-acre A2 stormwater treatment area for treatment. The project will provide an additional 370,000 acre-feet of clean water annually to the Everglades. And so we now have, if you go south of Lake Okeechobee, water flowing down to the Everglades. If you go to Florida Bay is at its salinity goals for the first time in decades. This was something that's new, happened over the last couple years, and so that's a really, really good sign. Now, we understand the EA reservoir is important. One of the requests we have into the Trump administration, we're ahead of schedule. We work much quicker. Army Corps of Engineers, not so much. It's taken a little longer. And so they're really tasked, and the whole SERP is 50-50. We're fine with taking the money from the feds, giving them credit for their share. We don't want the credit, but then letting us actually do this stuff, because we will move it quicker, and especially when you talk about the EAA reservoir, that can make a huge, huge difference. So we've asked to have that delegated to the state of Florida. Block grant us the money. We'll move it forward, and I think move it forward in a very, very positive way. So that'd be a huge, huge positive for the state of Florida if we can get that done. Another huge positive for the state of Florida is that this summer, the C-43 reservoir will be completed, and that's a major milestone for our Everglades restoration efforts. This project will be able to hold nearly 55 billion gallons of water. The already completed pump station of the reservoir will be able to move 650,000 gallons of water per minute from the Caloosahatchee into the C-43 reservoir. I think people know on this side, on the west side of Florida, west coast of Florida, you do need discharges into the Caloosahatchee during the dry season. You know, St. Lucie, they never want discharges, but you do need it. So you gotta manage that, and I know the Corps does different things, but you don't want the discharges in the summer like you had in 2018. That was before I was governor, but you had all these nutrients, the algae, and we've also done a lot to mitigate algae in Lake Okeechobee as well, but at the time that wasn't as much. So they're sending it, and it creates blooms. It interacts with some of the water in the Gulf. Exacerbated some of the red tide. You know, red tide's naturally occurring, but when you have the algae and some of the other nutrients going, it can make it worse. And so 2018, excuse me, was a really tough run. It hurt tourism, it hurt businesses, and obviously environmentally wasn't something to be good. Well, now, you know, if you have a situation where the lake rises and the Corps is discharging water, we'll be able to store that water in the C-43 reservoir, clean it, and then you can put it there, and it ends up being fine. So this is a major, major component to our efforts, and I'm excited that this will be something that will be up and running in time for this year's rainy season, which would be really, really good. Now, it's also the case, since I became governor during the first Trump administration, I worked with the president to say, listen, can you tell the Corps to try to mitigate these discharges and have, because all the Corps was focused on is what the water level is. If it's a possibility of flood, they just discharge. Well, you can manage the lake differently to try to prevent from being in that situation to begin with. And to their credit, you know, they did do that. And so you've had way fewer discharges since 2019 than you did in the preceding years. You know, part of it is because we're doing this infrastructure stuff that's come online, but part of it is that the Corps under the first Trump administration did manage it differently. And I think more appropriately. So that brings us to where we are today. We have incredible momentum. We've had incredible accomplishments on these very important initiatives. And this is something that I've worked with leaders in both the House and the Senate for years to be able to advance. Members of the legislature, all year in Southwest Florida, all your House members have embraced these projects, have campaigned on it, and have talked about how this is something that's really, really important for Florida. There seemed to be, you know, almost unanimous agreement that this was something that was good. There wasn't unanimous at first when I started it, but then by the time we did, people realized, because they saw the benefits and the public really appreciated that we were putting our money where our mouth is and making sure we were getting the job done. And so that brings us now to today. The legislature is currently in session, and they are working on their budget. Both in House and Senate have already submitted budget. I submitted my budget in February, and my budget called to continue the momentum of Everglades restoration and water quality. We proposed over $800 million, which is a record for that, $805 million. The Senate has basically agreed with that and is on board for what we're looking. And so I want to thank President Albritton, the member of the Senate, who stood up and said, yeah, let's continue the momentum. Unfortunately, the Florida House of Representatives has proposed a budget that slashes Everglades funding and water quality efforts by almost $500 million, almost $500 million in reductions that they're putting into this budget. They didn't campaign on that. They didn't tell you that this is something that they were going to do. They're just doing it. And a lot of the reason they're doing it is because the leadership in the House of Representatives has taken a position that if I'm for something, that it's their view to just oppose us, just in a knee-jerk fashion. Oh, the governor always gets his way. We don't want to give the governor any wins. That's kind of how these people think. Shouldn't you be doing what's right for the people of Florida? Stop playing your petty games. Stand up and do what's right. Do what the people asked us to do. Continue the momentum and stop with this silliness. They even in their budget defunded key aspects of the Florida Highway Patrol. I highlighted this last week. They wanted to slash almost 90 positions from our Florida Highway Patrol. They defunded body armor for the Florida Highway Patrol. And they did other things that will make the people of Florida less safe. And we called them on it. A lot of people were very frustrated. And what some of the members say, oh, you're mischaracterizing the budget process. Understand what they're telling you. They're admitting that their budget isn't worth anything. They're admitting that all this stuff is just, I don't know, is it just fluff? Is it for show? Why are you doing that? Why are you trying to defund the Highway Patrol positions? Why are you the first House over the last 6 years? They've never tried to do this before. No Senate has ever tried to do this before over the last 6, 7 years. This is what the Florida House is doing. It is not right. What they're doing is wrong. And this is one of so many other things where their agenda is not your agenda. Their agenda is not what the people voted for. Their whole agenda really represents a revolt against the voters that sent them there. All they had to do was continue the momentum, continue the success, build off what had come before you, and instead they submit a budget where they're trying to totally sabotage all the efforts that we have with Everglades restoration. And they'll try to say, oh, there's money sitting there that's not being used. That's not true. The Water Management District, and Chauncey can talk about this, their fiscal year ends a different time than the state. It ends at September 30th. And so all this stuff is obligated. It's all being put into work, and all these projects are being moved forward. The South Florida District has moved this stuff forward quicker than anybody thought possible. It's not easy to do all this stuff, and they're doing it. So slashing Everglades restoration funding is not the right way to go about it. That's not the only thing they're doing. So last year, under the leadership of your Senator, Kathleen Passidomo, and my friend, she created a framework where 96% of the Seminole Tribe Compact revenue would go to fund water quality improvement, infrastructure, and the continued acquisition and management of Florida's conservation lands. The deal was to basically continue the momentum that we have done. And it's not just, our momentum on Everglades restoration is great. I'm proud of it. We are leaving a very important legacy to our kids and grandkids by taking on these initiatives. But we've also created the Florida Wildlife Corridor. I mean, I don't want the state of Florida to be one big concrete slab someday. I want to be able to protect this, and Kathleen led the effort on that, and we've been able to put so much land into conservation in this really nice corridor, and it's kind of like Florida's version of Central Park. It just spans hundreds of miles, and it's good. So we've done so much stuff with this. So that was what was signed in the law. That was what the legislature passed. Now the House wants to undo that, and they want to redirect the money into just general revenue, which they'll basically use for their own pet projects. Now, when this stuff is not tended to, we know what ends up happening. You start to see the discharges have impact. You see erosion. You see all these different things that have happened. I mean, we've put a lot of resources into fortifying coastline and doing things that have really made a difference. They want to turn their back on that. So what I would tell people is that what you voted for? Did you vote to stop and sabotage the progress that we've made with Everglades restoration? And look, if that's what you wanted, if that's what you thought you were getting when you sent folks to the Florida House of Representatives, look, we can agree to disagree. I mean, that's life, right? Not everyone has to agree with me on this stuff. But I don't think that's what they told you they were going to do. I think they told you, and I think they understandably took credit for being a part of these great initiatives, and now all of a sudden, in the House's budget, they're just going to turn their back on those initiatives. That is not right. That is not the way you do business. So this is their budget. I know it doesn't get as much attention. I know people focus more on Washington, and I understand there's a lot going on there. But this is something that is just outright wrong. So I'm thankful to have been able to put forth a budget that continues the momentum, that continues us fulfilling our promise to leave this state to God better than we found it. And I'm thankful that the Senate in Florida has stepped up to the plate to answer the call as well. The House of Representatives has not been willing to do that, but on so many issues, they have just gone AWOL. They are not doing anything to address my call for property tax relief. They are not doing anything or have not done anything yet to alleviate the condo crisis that was created by legislation that they passed several years ago. And they're not doing what people are expecting them to do. And a lot of what they're trying to do is to try to undo a lot of the good work that's been done in recent years. And that's not what they told you they were going to do. So I'm thankful for everyone that's been a part of this fight. It's not easy to have done all that's been done. We kind of were, I think some people just thought it was on autopilot, that of course everyone's going to continue to do that. Florida it's a great success story to have gotten these projects started and completed in such quick time. You see the water flow, you see the results, but yet there's some folks that are wanting to turn back. We're not going to turn back. We're going to keep the momentum going. So let's get this done. Let's have a budget that actually reflects the priorities of the people of Florida. And with that, I'm going to invite up some other speakers, starting with our Secretary, Alexis Lambert.
Thank you, Governor. I'm Alexis Lambert, and it's my privilege to serve as the Secretary of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. What an honor to stand here and reinforce the message we just heard, because what Florida is doing to restore the Everglades and protect the environment is truly historic. Since 2019, as the Governor mentioned, Florida has invested more than $3.3 billion in Everglades restoration, more than the previous 12 years combined. We've also taken major steps to improve the pace and efficiency of this work. 2 recent projects we managed were completed 6 to 7 years ahead of schedule. We're also learning from past challenges. In the past, projects like the C-44 reservoir had to be broken up and permitted in pieces due to funding uncertainty, leading to more than a dozen permit modifications over time. That approach creates unnecessary delays and drives up costs. When we fund projects in full and plan comprehensively, like we have under the Governor's leadership, we minimize those complications. A good example is the C-43 reservoir. It was originally planned in 2 parts, but we made the decision to build it all at once. That single choice saved years in construction time and millions of dollars. It's decisions like these that have positioned Florida as a national leader in restoration. It's also why we are working hard with the federal government to take the lead on managing more of this work. As proposed by the governor back in January, we're now in discussions to have Florida manage federally funded SERP projects. DEP and our partners at the South Florida Water Management District are working on an updated agreement with the Army to allow for even faster construction and give taxpayers a better return on these very vital investments. So let's let today serve as a reminder that we can't afford to lose momentum. Continued investment is critical because restoring the Everglades is not just an environmental priority, it's a commitment to Florida's future. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Roger Young. I'm the Executive Director for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. And Governor, thank you for being here, and thank you for having me here. It's a true honor to stand here today. This is such a beautiful place, and to celebrate these announcements, these environmental announcements and accomplishments here in Southwest Florida on such a beautiful day. And this area is so important to our natural resources. You know, properly managed water systems like the C-43 help sustain healthy fisheries and estuaries that support recreational and commercial fishing, which is so important to these communities, especially here in Southwest Florida, but across the state. And Governor, thank you for your leadership and your commitment to conservation. I was there on that Arctic cold day. Your commitment has been there since day one, and it has been unprecedented commitment through funding and support for our environment and for conservation, and we are so grateful for all of that. You know, it's because of that that Florida truly is the fishing and boating capital of the world. And so many of our residents and our visitors enjoy that and come here and live here because of that fact. You know, it is this commitment and these important measures that will ensure that the Everglades will remain one of a kind. The Everglades truly are one of a kind in the entire world. And we want to protect this for the next generation. I see a lot of kids here. We want them to be able to enjoy the Everglades like we did growing up for future generations. So Governor, again, thank you, and I want to thank all of our partners that work so hard together to preserve and support the Everglades, the environment, and conservation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chauncey Goss. I'm chairman of the South Florida Water Management District's governing board. Governor, thanks for being here. Secretary Lambert, it's nice to see you. Executive Director Young, thank you all for being in Southwest Florida. The governor introduced my board members, but I'd like to recognize Charlotte Roman from just down the road here in Marco, Ben Butler from Okeechobee. Thanks for making the drive down this morning, Ben. I appreciate your being here. And Drew Bartlett, our incredible executive director who leads one of the best staffs in the whole state. So thank you very much for being here. I've been chair of this board now for 6 years, and we are continuing to see both small and large-scale Everglades restoration projects come online. And really the beauty of that is it's working. We're seeing record hydration in the Everglades. We're seeing salinity levels in Florida Bay that are hitting their goals. And we're seeing water storage capacity that has tripled in just 6 years. But I want to go back in time for just a second and talk just about something the governor referenced. Talk about 2016, talk about 2018. And I'm sure a lot of you remember those lost summers when those toxic discharges poured onto our coastal estuaries and red tide ravaged our beaches, ravaged our canals. It smelled awful. You could barely be outside. Both Southwest Florida and Southeast Florida felt the impacts, and our local economies faltered as a result. I'm glad to see John Lai here. He's from the Sanibel Captiva Chamber of Commerce. He was very instrumental in working with us just to let everyone know, hey, this isn't just an environmental problem, this is an economic problem. To see James Evans here from Sanibel, who was in the ground zero working with us trying to clean up the beaches after that red tide, it was an unbelievably bad time. And water is the lifeblood of South Florida. I think most of you know that. And our economy depends on clean water. It depends on healthy coasts. Governor DeSantis recognized this was a huge problem. He understood the impact those lost summers were having on our businesses, on our real estate values, and on our way of life here in South Florida. That's why he signed that executive order within 48 hours of taking office in 2019. That recognized the solution to eliminating damaging discharges is the restoration of Florida's Everglades. That executive order outlined a bold vision of how we were going to advance Everglades restoration, how we were going to improve water quality, how we were going to send more clean water south, and we were going to reduce damaging discharges from Lake Okeechobee to the coastal estuaries, and we have. But he didn't just sign an executive order. He fought hard for unprecedented spending at the state level, and he went to bat, and he still does, go to bat for the Everglades with the president. Under Governor DeSantis, we've had the highest level of funding for Everglades restoration in our state's history. The governor understands that by restoring the historic flow of water, our water managers, us, are going to have greater flexibility. We're going to have more tools. We're going to have more levers to be able to push and pull to manage our incredibly complex water management system and to reduce the discharges that damage our economy and that damage our ecology. And because of the governor's leadership in shattering that status quo of not getting much done, in just a few short months, we are going to celebrate, as he mentioned, the initial operations of the Caloosahatchee C-43 reservoir here on the West Coast, something we've all been waiting for a really long time. This reservoir, long anticipated, is going to provide storage for approximately 55 billion gallons of water off of the Caloosahatchee River. It's going to reduce harmful flows of water from the lake to the Caloosahatchee estuary, which is where I live. Right out here, it comes down this way as well during the wet season, and provide beneficial freshwater flows to the estuary during the dry season. And just a few miles from here, we have another SERP project called the Picayune Strand that Charlotte Roman has been working very hard on and helping the Corps understand that we need to get this done quicker. And this project's going to be finished in the next year, and that's going to restore natural flow of water across 85 square miles in Collier County. It's going to rehydrate drained wetlands, enhance habitat for fish and wildlife, and restore the area's natural sheet flow right here to the 10,000 islands. We're also going to celebrate the completion of the Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetland Project, another SERP effort, and that's going to improve the health of Biscayne Bay and is going to aid in wetland rehydration, building coastal resiliency, and improving water quality in Miami-Dade County. So this is really the year of SERP. We're seeing major Everglades projects come online, and the fact that we're going to have major water storage both on the East Coast and the West Coast this year is a real game changer for us in the water management world. But all of us know there's still so much work to do, and I think that's why we're here today, because now is not the time to stop. Now is not the time to slow down. Our water is too important to the lives of Floridians. It's critical that we keep our foot on the gas and keep getting the job done. We need to finish the AA reservoir. We need to keep advancing projects for the Indian River Lagoon. We need to keep restoring the Western Everglades and Big Cypress Preserve right here. We need to keep storage projects going to protect Lake Okeechobee and our bass fishery. We need to remain laser focused on sending water south. And we need to double down on our commitment to leaving Florida better than we found it for future generations. So I'm honored to be here today representing the district, and thank you, Governor, for your leadership and your commitment to Florida's water resources.
I think it's also worth just pointing out, we've talked about record funding for Everglades restoration. We also, in my budget this year, and I think the Senate's as well, and hopefully that'll get across the line, we're going to have record increase for teacher salaries, and we've done that over many, many years leading up to this biggest one. We've also done record investment in transportation, and particularly roads, and we did Moving Florida Forward. So we've dealt with and done really big things that benefit the people of Florida, but we've also done that within the context of a budget that, even though we have 3 million more residents now than New York State does, our budget's less than half the size of New York State's budget. We've almost quadrupled the rainy day fund since I've been governor. If you look at all the debt that's been accumulated in Florida's 180-year history, just since I've been in, we've paid off 41% of that. So we have the lowest number of state employees per capita in the entire United States. So don't tell me it can't be done. We're doing it. We're showing how it's done by doing very strong fiscal conservative, low debt, low tax, but then also actually using our ability to make impacts on major things. So I couldn't be more proud of that. I'm obviously very disappointed that the House is trying to sabotage the momentum. I don't think voters will like that too much, and so we thought it was important to come highlight our commitment, make sure everybody knows we're not giving an inch on this, and then hopefully you'll let your members of the House of Representatives know here in Florida that you want to continue the momentum on this. You don't want to see them slashing the Everglades restoration efforts. So thank you for everything. Okay, we got any questions back there? All right, God bless everybody. Thank you.